context here of Planned Parenthood's size and the amount of taxpayer money they get and the amount of kills that they do
Yeah.
annually, how many abortions they commit.
Yeah. So Planned Parenthood is the single biggest abortion provider in our country. They are now a nearly $2 billion a year organization. Back when we started doing this kind of work, they were a $1.2 billion a year organization. They're now a $2 billion a year organization. They now do nearly 400,000 abortions every year, and they are receiving close to $700 million in taxpayer funding every year.
We've been very good at getting cars on liver because we know that so I'm not going to crush that part. I'm going to basically crush below, I'm going to crush above, and I'm going to see that get out intact. A lot of people want intact parts these days because they're looking for specific nodes, AB nodes, SA. I was like, wow, I didn't even know. Good for them. Yesterday was the first time she said people wanted lungs. And then she felt like I said, always as many intact livers as possible.
What would you expect for intact tissue? What sort of compensation? What sort of...
Well, why don't you start by telling me what you used to pay? I want a Lamborghini. I said I want a Lamborghini.
Because that's how we're going to keep you happy,
Yes,
right?
yes.
To make sure that financially
Yes.
you're growing your clinic and however you need to say that, frame it on the other end.
Yes. If we alter our process and we are able to obtain intact fetal cadavers, it's all just a matter of line items.
For those who are listening, some of those lines you hear a lot of background noise. You're in restaurants, you're in these situations. People are, waiters are walking by, and you're hearing Planned Parenthood executives talk about how they want a Lamborghini for compensation for the body parts of these second trimester babies, or about how they manipulate the abortion procedure so they can get these intact body parts. Can you help folks listening or walk folks listening through what these admissions meant in terms of what these clinics were actually doing, and then also the legality of it?
Yeah. Yeah. So
I
what you
should say
just...
the illegality of it.
Yeah. So in the clips that you just saw, the first clip, which is some of one of the more famous undercover videos, is actually the very first video release on July 14th, 2015. That is a business lunch meeting that I had with Dr. Deborah Nucatola, who at the time was the Senior Director of Medical Services for Planned Parenthood nationwide. So literally the top abortion doctor overall of Planned Parenthood, in charge of writing their medical manuals for how you run your Planned Parenthood abortion clinic, in charge of training for the new Planned Parenthood abortion doctors and training for the medical students, and in charge of research and late abortions at Planned Parenthood Los Angeles in Southern California. And we were very fortunate to make contact with her during the early phases of the undercover project. And so we basically scheduled a business lunch meeting with her. My team was posing as representatives of a new startup biotech company that wanted to come into the Planned Parenthood clinics, buy the body parts from them, harvest them right after the abortions there in the back of the clinic, and then turn around and resell them to research laboratories all over the country. And that isn't just an idea that I came up with. That was just modeling ourselves after many real life startup companies that were cropping up all in the around 2008, 2009, 2010. And that's actually a business model that even goes back a little bit further into the early 1990s. But so we were basically just trying to, in order to do a very authentic and thorough investigation that would document, just like a fly on the wall, the way that these transactions for aborted baby body parts actually happen. We were just modeling ourselves after real life players in the industry, and then entering into those spaces so that we could investigate exactly how those transactions are structured and what Planned Parenthood's attitude is towards them. And so we had this business lunch meeting with Dr. Nicotola, a fancy restaurant in one of the nicer parts of Los Angeles. And she proceeded to tell us that they, and she in particular, was so great at harvesting aborted babies for research in Los Angeles, because the way that they would do it at her clinic is she would use ultrasound guidance when she was doing these late-term abortions. So she would use the ultrasound, so she would know where to put her forceps inside of the woman so that she wouldn't crush the parts of the baby that they wanted to harvest.
And this
she
is a
said,
live baby.
This is a baby who's alive. This is while the baby is still alive, because they can't use a feticidal chemical like digoxin, for example, to kill the baby ahead of time, because then you're going to have necrosis of all of the tissues and organs, and it's not going to be usable for like the cell cultures or anything else that you would want to do with it experimentally. So this is while the baby is still alive on ultrasound. The abortion doctor is looking at the baby, being careful where to put their forceps so they don't crush the parts of the baby that they want to sell. And then what Dr. Nika told us they would even do, and I remember the exact moment where I was, I think I had ordered a pasta dish or something, and so I was sort of mid forkful, and she says, what you can actually do is on ultrasound guidance, you can convert the fetus to a breech position, which means you'll use your forceps to flip the baby feet first, and then guide and kind of gently pull the baby out feet first with the forceps.
Living baby.
While the baby is still alive. And then if you do it the right way, eventually you'll be able to get the entire head out, the calvarium intact, so that you can harvest an intact brain as well. So what she walked us through while we were having this lunch over, my pasta, her salad, the 1 or 2 bottles of wine, what she walked us through in this discussion was literally the key steps of a partial birth abortion, which is a federal crime. And she said that this is what Planned Parenthood doctors could do regularly across the country in order to harvest body parts for sale and for experimentation. So that's a huge admission. I mean, I kind of froze in the middle of it. Like, I couldn't believe that she was telling us this in a public setting, like out in the middle of this crowded restaurant. The waiters are like walking around, and she's saying that, like, yeah, Planned Parenthood's MO is that when it comes to fetal tissue research, we're just doing partial birth abortions to give you the body parts that you want, to sell you the body parts that you want.
Are some of these babies born alive?
I think absolutely. Because if they're delivering the baby whole and intact, and the baby hasn't been killed because they haven't used feticide, they haven't used digoxin or potassium chloride or anything like that on the baby ahead of time. So the cause of death for that baby, for that preemie age baby, is going to be either the neglect once they're delivered alive prematurely, or they're going to die when their organs are cut out for experiments.
Did you know that